water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the
Fuck off, Black Avatar Dragon attacked and killed everyone! Blazing black dragons, so named for resembling both lightning and darkness. They mercilessly tear apart whoever touches their sharp scales. Elementally unstable, their actions can affect the very weather. Living natural disasters. Hello, my fellow hunters! First came Fatalis, and then Alatreon, the next of the first-class dangerous monsters, a black dragon second only to Fatalis across the world of Monster Hunter, nigh unmatched in elemental fury. The blazing black dragon decimates by simply existing, causing virulent storms of frantic weather, from hail the size of boulders to lightning storms racking the sky in thunderous cry, infernos billowing across the land, leaving ashes in wake, and the very ground itself cracking and quaking as it crumbles beneath this titanic might. Alatreon is bad news. A living natural disaster, no exaggeration. He really does warp the very atmosphere where he treads, destroying whole settlements by simply being nearby. The residents crying out for salvation before going silent forever in the face of this apocalyptic weather. Alatreon has no control over this power, for he is a jolly good fellow. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. He is elementally unstable, but we'll get to the core of what that means soon. Firstly, know that Alatreon is said to be a combination, a melding pot of all the strength and abilities of the true Elder Dragons, the triumvirate of Kushala, Chameleos, and Teostra. For when there is one, the other two are not far away. And you may be thinking, wait, but why is Chameleos then the clearly best of the three, not in world? And to that I say, no, actually he is. He's been there the entire time. Look, he's right there. How cool is that? No, but it is a crime he is not in world. Alatreon then, a fusion of these already potent beasts, and as such is filled to the brim with unnatural energy. Energy that is produced by his very scales. Each one a tiny organ in of itself, pumping out copious amounts of element. And not all the same element either. He can summon dragon, ice, thunder, and fire. Fuck water, though. And indeed, he isn't the greatest fan of water itself, living in the heart of the volcano, in an area known as the Sacred Land. He rules absolute. Fortunately for all, a seclusive and seldom seen creature, happy to live out his days alone. And he really is. Alone. From the smallest insect to the mighty Acantor, all flee his presence. For miles around, his kingdom is supremely still. The scales, then, consistently generating this concoction of power, do so of their own accord. Alatreon cannot will it. Alatreon cannot control it. He must simply channel it. And to do so, he has two distinct modes. While bound groundwards, he can use fire and dragon, able to fire a small ball of flame that upon impact with the ground ignites into a veritable pyroclasm geyser, melting those within to a mere puddle. The dragon then not used as you might expect. It acts much more akin to a steroid, coating his body in crackling red as he charges at you, turning his already indomitable physical might up to beyond what should be possible for mere flesh to contain, barreling through even the toughest of opponents like they were naught but wind. Essentially, for Alatreon, dragon element is Side note, for anyone wondering, I have officially caught up to the latest chapter of the My Hero manga, and I'm now experiencing the darkest timeline as I wait for more. Back to Alatreon then! He is really quite competent when it comes to a fight. As a black dragon, devilishly clever, on par with man at a minimum, he knows what he needs to do to dismantle any given opposition, using brutal swipes enhanced with dragon, throwing his weight around, and generally causing a ruckus. You do not want to go mano a mano with this Drago, you know. It sounded better in my head, if I'm completely honest. But as I said, Alatreon cannot really control this, only channel it, so all of his scales are constantly bubbling, and when they reach boil, Alatreon essentially has to go, "Dragon's ready!" Then the shroud of power erupts round him, and he kills you so hard, your entire family line feels it. So, that is Dragon and Fire. When he then goes airborne, he switches to Thunder and Ice. This mode switch, again, not something he can entirely control. It's simply a case of, oh, I guess we're full of lightning now, I'm gonna fly into the air. And while there, he puts on a show that almost makes a Kirin jealous, striking the area around him with bolts of death. They cause havoc. And beyond that, akin to Dragon, well, he wraps himself all snug and warm in a blanket of blue, and comes flying propelled with thunderous force to tear you apart. His wings then, muscled and powerful, beating with such force that on the way past, lesser creatures can be slain by the mere air pressure alone. Then we have the Ice, and Ice is Alatreon's final gambit. Initially able to fire it out of his maw, and seriously, an Alatreon maw? I mean, just take a good look at this guy's gob. Imagine shoving your arm in there. It'd actually probably be quite comfy. Because, like, he's boiling inside because of all of this swirling energy, and it's probably quite soft as well because it's the interior of a living... Is that just me? The ice can also come in a form, then, of a frigid beam, a swirl of cold, freezing those it passes over, stopping them, quite literally, dead in their tracks. A hunter hit is not left in the greatest of situations. But by far the greatest power of the ice, and as I said, Alatreon's final gambit, is to head skyward, high above the battlefield, and summon an apocalyptic hailstorm, dropping ice crystals the size of Bullfango, and every bit as annoying, en masse, hurtling towards the hunters below, as they play the most dangerous game of dodge. wondering how his scales actually do work like this, well, it's simply because each of them has a tiny speaker inside playing this on loop.
Storm, backgrounds fill the sky. I hear my battle cry.
Look, I'm going to take any opportunity to sneak that song into anything, thank you. In reality, it is an utter bloody mystery. I mean, he has a question mark as a monster picture for a reason. The guild just kind of looked at him and went, I don't fucking know, what do you want from me? Look at that, what? I mean, all the black dragons do share this question mark, and, well, rightly so, they are just enigmas. This, then, is the Alatreon. A lesser monster would get ripped apart by the power his scales are churning out and swirling around his body. But fortunately, his scales, his hide, is as iron, akin to his very will, and he is able to harness this trait. One of the most combat-able, physically powerful monsters, backed up by a chaotic concoction of concentrated elements, all peaked in their strength. Alatreon, then, simply is supreme. Now, admittedly, I have no problem saying that Alatreon is stretching the boundaries of believability, especially when it comes to a realistic-ish animal, right? But that is, well, the category of Black Dragon. It's essentially the free pass to just kinda go a bit nuts. They are such mysterious, ancient, powerful beings that they use the Black Dragon classification, and they've only used it 3 times, not counting subspecies, to really let them go a little bit mental and provide a experience unlike any other, and that it does. You will not forget your first time fighting Alatreon. You'll not forget your 50th time fighting Alatreon. It is always a heart-pounding, intense battle. He is an absolute tank, and he hits like a freight train. He is quick, and he is efficient. You feel like you barely have any time to retaliate, and when you do get that time, he's probably in the air, and at best you can tickle his toes from underneath, putting yourself in one of the most dangerous positions for most of his aerial-based attacks. Now, you can flash him when he's not enraged to bring him down, but that's still quite limited in its effectiveness, but certainly something every hunter should show up to an Alatreon hunt with. Any of these killed make a hunter legendary. They are so seldom brought to bear. And on top of all of this, really, his scales producing his elements are also one of the sharpest and deadliest scales to simply touch out of them all. Bringing weakly crafted weapons to him, well, you're asking for this to happen. And even a hunter just stumbling and falling against his hide, well, they're going to be reduced to bloody ribbons. But that actually is about it. A fantastically fun, intense fight that tests you as a hunter and your skill to the max against a monster that I'm not the biggest fan of how he looks. I feel like his horns are just silly, and he's a little bit muddy, browny, muted for something representing so many colourful and flashy elements, but then again, maybe that's the point. But I've never been a huge fan of his overall aesthetic design, but of the fight, I cannot praise enough. It is really one of those kills that even many down the line, you still have a yeah, fucking hell, after the fight is over. At least if you're not doing a really efficient 4-man like Cheese Strat and absolutely destroying him, but that applies to every monster, really. He's not part of any grand epic tales enriched in lore like Fatalis and Shrade. He is said to be a monster capable of destroying the world, but I think we can put that down to Pokédex entry-level hyperbole. And really, that is kind of all she wrote. Now, normally we'd speculate about this monster's place in World, but in this case, we do know it is coming to World. So the real question is, how are they going to pull that off in a way that befits a black dragon? Firstly, it is bloody exciting we are getting a black dragon in World's Fidelity, but I am hoping that they really play up how much of, well, holy shit, we're fucked when an Alatreon is flying to the new world to die. An Elder Dragon it still is. The reasoning is there and believable. So when it arrives, I hope, I need it to start causing its weather shenanigans. I want to be in Astera and see thunder arcing down and turning the entire place, well, less than safe. I want to be walking through the Coral Highlands and have pillars of flame roving around as an Alatreon has been here recently. I want to go to the Rotten Vale and find ice creeping across the flesh. Really play up just how much this monster is ravaging the new world and how much of an important fight it is. Give it its own arena, or at a pinch maybe reuse the Xeno one, but it definitely shouldn't be on one of the existing maps. It's too much of an important battle and it has too many large-scale attacks, and I just don't see it working. That maybe recess, but give it its own real punctuation mark of an arena. I think they can do so many creative things with just the power of a creature like this, and if it just arrives as, yeah, here's a one little quest to investigate, go fight a black dragon, I'll be really sad. They can really do some compelling story when it comes to a black dragon coming to the new world, so I very much hope that is the case. So, there you have it, everyone. That is Alatreon. He is wonderful. Probably my favorite black dragon. I don't know if I'll dedicate an entire video to the final one, Diamoralis, because there's even less about him. Maybe, I mean, he boils ocean, so you probably are a little bit interested, right? But at the very least, let me know what you'd like Loreified next. Like if you did enjoy this, share it around, subscribe, all of that helpful stuff, you wonderful people. Please discuss below your own thoughts on Alatreon. A good one.
Rage Gaming with the video float.
But that's all that's really relevant at the mo, but I'm still gonna leave this up so you patrons know that I love you even though the outro's no longer that kinda relevant. But the new one's being worked on and it's gonna be a truly badass song, and don't worry, I won't be doing any rapping on it. I'm gonna go now. This was shit.